Hello guys, I just wanted to quickly check in with you guys with a video. I had such a strong opinion about what was going to happen in the near future, and then this week came along and it was much more optimistic than I was anticipating. And frankly, it made me look and feel like an idiot. So I just want to reach out and just give you guys some of my thoughts on the matter. Currently, my feeling is that there's certain things that need to be done to protect the economy from imploding. And by imploding, it doesn't mean that it has to be a Great Depression, but the economy was already, in my opinion, getting weaker. The stock market was rolling over, and then the Iran war came along and made it worse. The giant increase in oil prices makes inflation worse, stagflation more likely. These are not good things. These are not good things. So the market wanted to see, regardless of what your opinion is for the justification of the war, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, the market doesn't really care and just wants global trade to run normally. And to do that, it wants to see the strait opened up ASAP. It wanted to see the strait opened up before April 1st. It wanted to see the U.S. Navy charge in there with destroyers and minesweepers and get a lane opened up ASAP. And it wanted to see the mines cleared, or at least declared that there are no mines, because I don't actually think there are any mines. But anyways, and it didn't care. It wanted whatever needed to be done to get the insurance companies to say, you know what, it's actually safe to go through. That's what the market wanted to see. And they thought maybe the U.S. Navy was going to do it. Then they thought maybe Trump was going to have it done by the beginning of April. Then they thought, oh, well, Iran's going to do it. Iran's going to let a bunch of ships out. And it might be enough to deflate the extreme pressure. But not enough boats are coming out, and now there's a blockade on the blockade. So currently, I'm going to assume nothing's going to come out. So it just seems like, despite the fact that everyone knows what needs to be done and how fast it needs to be done, no one's really cooperating and getting it done. Like the United States, Israel, and Iran, they're not playing ball. Iran, and I actually shouldn't even say Iran because it's not really Iran. It's not the people of Iran. It's not even necessarily the Iranian government, although now that the war has been started, the Iranian government itself, like the civilian government, I'm sure is much more nationalistic. It's really just the IRGC. And the IRGC, it's easy to think of them as a religious group, but in reality, they're just the same, authoritarian, corrupt, insider government that you're going to find in any BS country that is corrupt like that. They're just the people who are in charge, and they don't make decisions based on what's best for the people. They make decisions what's best for themselves, keeping their own power, keeping their own cash flow that they then use to pay the security force, the Republican Guard. And then they use the Republican Guard to maintain oppression of the people. And if you think that's a horrible thing, it is a horrible thing, but that happens in a lot of countries where the people who are in charge just misuse the funds and they spend it on, the military police, and they use the military police to keep the population under control. It's not a great thing to do, but it happens. Iran, or the IRGC, is so backed into a corner, they feel they can't negotiate. If they negotiate, if they acquiesce, if they look weak, if they don't have money to pay their security force, they lose control. There's like a coup or a mutiny, whatever you want to call it, and they lose control of their nation. So they're in a fragile state, so they're not going to be negotiating. And they have this asymmetric warfare strategy where they know they can tolerate more pain than the U.S. They know that every day that they extract financial pain on the global economy is a way for them to remind the world, hey, we're not some dirt corner. We actually have a significant role to play in the world. And so for them, it's an asymmetric warfare strategy, and it actually does have a good chance of working, because generally authoritarian governments can afford to be more stubborn and wait out democratic governments like Trump. Trump has to respond on some level to the happiness of the people. If oil prices are high for too long and too much of the American population is just disgusted with it and frustrated, like, he's going to feel that pressure. Meanwhile, the Republican Guard, like, they have an unlimited amount of time to deal with the pressure of the citizens. Like, they don't care. So back to Trump. My sense is that he, in a way, bit off more than he can chew. Right? He thought it was going to be easy. He thought it was going to immediately, quickly collapse. He felt that this would be an accomplishment that no other president had done, and instead of it being easy, it definitely got messier and more complex than he originally anticipated. I suspect that it's not that he wants to quit. But he wants it to be. How about this? He's willing to use aggressive tactics to get it done fast, because it's already gone longer than he wants. And so that means he's willing to use threats of aggressive military force to try to get it done fast. And he's also willing to use aggressive negotiation tactics to try to get it resolved fast. The problem is that, the two other parties involved, they don't want to get this thing resolved fast. If we're looking at game theory, we have the U.S., right? And again, U.S. mostly wants to get this resolved quickly. There's a part of the U.S. that whispers to itself and says, oh, well, we can make a lot of money when we sell oil. This is actually a bad idea, bad strategy, because, yes, the American oil companies can make a lot of money. But in the meantime, the American consumers are paying a lot of money. And it is way worse to have American consumers overall paying a lot of money just so that some few American companies can make a lot of money. It's way better to have the consumers paying less. The IRGC, we already talked about them. Their strategy is not really to negotiate. I mean, they don't really care. If they drag the U.S., if they convince the U.S. to actually put boots on the ground, I suspect the IRGC would love that opportunity. They would just go into a guerrilla warfare mindset, and they would extract max pain on the U.S. So I think they partly would welcome that. Again, they're just backed into a corner. The people who are deciding in the IRGC, they feel if they don't resist the United States, they die, or they lose their power and their privileges. They don't want to lose their power and their privileges, so they're going to play hardball. And then Israel's like the spoiler. Israel has zero incentive. Well, I shouldn't say zero incentive, but they have a very little incentive to see this resolve, because they want to see the IRGC in Iran turn into a failed state. They feel that if it just totally crumbles and turns into a bunch of warlords who are fighting over, mountains and tribal fiefdom areas in Iran, then they don't have to worry about Iran for a long, long time. I think that's a flawed strategy, since failed states become the breeding grounds of terrorist organizations. And if you think there's a lot of terrorists in Iran now, and then they turn into a failed state, you're probably going to have more of them. But in any case, Israel's a spoiler. So of the three people involved, only the U.S. wants to see this thing resolved immediately. And even then, the U.S. is self-deluding itself, where if it doesn't get resolved early, well, we'll still make some money. We'll make a lot of money selling oil to everybody at high prices. But in the meantime, you're killing and you're destroying and significantly hurting the average American consumer. And then the IRGC and Israel, they're in no rush. They're in no rush. IRGC might be in a rush now with the double blockade. I know the double blockade sounds really stupid or something like that, but it's actually an okay way to choke off the IRGC's income stream from the toll. But I don't see these guys getting this game resolved anytime soon. finally there's that strategic reserve of oil that's been released that's been kind of helping oil prices stay as high as they are. They'd be higher if they hadn't released that strategic oil, and they haven't let it all out. They've still got some, but it won't last forever. Some estimates say it'll only last until May 1st. Some have it lasting until June 15th, and some have it lasting until July 15th. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but in any case, it doesn't last forever. This is one of the main reasons why they got to get the crisis resolved ASAP. Plus, there's other products that are connected to the oil. It was such an unusual start to the week. Certainly different than what I was expecting. I think a lot of you guys were also expecting perhaps a significant increase in oil and a significant decrease in the stock market and in a lot of other asset prices, and instead we got some crazy pumps. So let's just quickly go over that and see where we stand. The oil market, which we just talked about, I see the market desperately wants to see the Strait open up. It really doesn't care about anything else. I think that had the U.S. Navy moved as quickly as possible in prioritizing opening the Strait, clearing mines, trying to make it safe to get insurance that the ships could actually use to get back out of the Strait. If those things had happened, we probably would have seen this kind of timeline of events where oil wouldn't have gone over 115, might not have gone over 105, and then by June to maybe August, if Iran's not cooperating with the mine sweeping operation, might take until June or August to get it certified that it's safe. But at least there would have been a passage opened up, and we would have had a lot of boats getting through. Since that hasn't happened, and then for a while it looked like, okay, well, Iran's going to do it. Iran's going to open up an emergency lane, and at least some boats will get out that way. And perhaps as they negotiate, more and more boats can get out. Now, I don't know what the status is now with the double blockade. I understand actually the rationale for the double blockade, but that certainly does not help oil get out of the Persian Gulf. So this timeline is sketchy. It could be this is the thing that is followed silently, like nobody talks about it, but it still kind of plays out that way. But I just feel every day that we go further and further into April and get closer and closer to May 1st, we're just taking a risk that $120 oil does become real. And after May 1st, I think the chance of it jumping to this 140, 160 range goes way up. Certainly by June 15th, if it hasn't been resolved, that 150 oil becomes extremely likely. The $180 and $200 oil, I think, is hard to achieve just because there's so much demand destruction. There's actually demand destruction that happens at 120, and even more demand destruction that happens at 150. So it's hard for me to see it sustain at 180 and 200. Another aspect we should think about is if it stays at 120 for 3 months, there's a likelihood of global recession. Technically, Brent's not there, but the actual price that I think oil's going for, is over $120, and that's the one that actually matters. So it's possible the clock is already ticking on this 3-month countdown of don't go over 3 months with high oil prices. That's just what it is. And of course, anything positive that happens, like even now, you see what happens. They come out with a super big breakthrough, positive breakthrough, and the price just collapses. So oil wants to be down here in like the 80 to 60, 70, $80 range. It might even go lower. Might even return to like a super low number by the end of the year. But for the time being, we got to work through all this crap.